My dogs are going crazy. 1 second. Hey, Road Raiders! Okay, so I know you're probably wondering, Maky, why do you look so professional today? And that's because today's video is all about interviewing, how to be a good interviewer, answering, you know, those typical questions like, what's your biggest weakness and how am I supposed to answer that? All those kind of questions and more will be answered in today's video. So if you have an interview coming up or you're just preparing for interviews in the future, stick around and let's answer some of y'all's most common questions about interviews. Now I know the first thing you're probably thinking is, wow, Maky, you look so good and professional, to which I would say, thank you. Second of all, if you haven't already, go check out last week's video where TJ and I go thrifting. I kid you not, every outfit I've ever worn for an interview, I thrifted. It's where I get all of my like, what are these, like blazers, fancy jackets, stuff like that. I get them all at thrift stores because those can be so expensive. So don't go to Banana Republic or Crew or anywhere like that. Just go to a thrift store. I guarantee you will find some cute vintage outfits to wear for your interviews. So go check out that video if you haven't. Watch it after this one. I'll link it here or down there and y'all can check it out. Anyways, let's get this video started. I am a junior at Texas Tech. I have been in so many interviews, but I've also conducted a ton of interviews. I'm the president of an organization on campus where we do interviews once or twice a semester, and we interview over 130 applicants. So I've done that. I helped interview for the vlog squad to get all of our cool new vloggers. So I've had some experience being the interviewer, but I've also had a ton of experience being the interviewee, and I have learned a lot over my time in college interviewing a ton. So I thought I'd kind of help y'all out, give y'all some tips and tricks on interviewing, what to do, what not to do, things like that. So let's get this started. My very first tip is going to be know your strengths. This is so important. Know what you bring to the table. Yes, they're interviewing you, but you're also interviewing them. They want you. They invited you for the interview, you know? So know that you're an asset, know what you bring to the table, and be confident in that. Now, one thing I'd say, if you are a Texas Tech student and you're watching this video, or you're coming to Tech, you can write this down and keep it in your notes to remind you when you get here, is that we offer something called Strengths Quest. It's a free test. It's because of Texas Tech pays for all of their students to be able to take this test. If you just type in Strength Test TTU, they'll take you to the link and you can take this test, and it is very extensive. And at the end, you get your top 5 strengths with a detailed analysis of them and what they mean. And it has been so helpful for me in job interviews because I have this concrete way of knowing, like, oh yeah, like you know, it's hard to know what you're good at sometimes, but taking that test really made me be like, oh yeah, I am good at that. Like, and someone else recognizes it and I can point it out, you know? So maybe taking that test will help you kind of figure out what your strengths are, and then you'll have more concrete language to define what you're good at in job interviews. So for example, I always say that my main strength is that I found my voice, but I use my voice to help others find theirs. That's because on Strength Quest, my #1 skill is developing. So that means that I can see the potential in others, I can advocate for them, but I can also see where they can go and kind of help direct their passion and their work. So that's what I always say one of my #1 strengths is. So go take the Strengths Quest quiz and comment down your #1 strength below because I want to know what y'all's are. There's literally so many, so I'm very curious what some of y'all's is. The second thing I'm gonna say is, on the opposite end of that, know your weakness and know how to answer that question, because 9 out of 10 times a job interviewer is gonna ask you, what's your weakness? Or tell us about a time that, you know, you messed up and how'd you overcome it? There's always gonna be that question of like, we know you're not perfect, now tell us why. My #1 thing with answering that question is make sure you've read over the job description, and do not say any of the weakness. Don't make your weakness anything that's in that job description. So if in the job description it says you need to be a team player, don't go into that job interview and say, you know, like, oh, my weakness is collaborating with others, but I'm working on it, because that's a huge aspect of your job and you already know that. So don't say that, even if it's true. Figure it out. Figure that out on your own. Don't say that in a job interview. The second thing I'll say is anytime you're answering this question of just like, what is your weakness, don't make it a characteristic of yourself. So don't make it like a personality trait that can't be changed. So don't be like, I'm impatient, because that seems like something that you can't really fit. Said, in these situations, I come off as impatient, and people have told me this, so I worked on it this way. So make sure, you know, interviewing is all about how you word things, stuff like that. So be very particular in how you answer that question of, you know, what is your weakness? Don't make it a personality trait, and don't make it anything in the job description. There's tons of good examples of what to say, you know, your weaknesses. Do not say that like, oh, I'm a perfectionist, or I work too hard, because that is not answering their question. No, that's not your weakness. Like, I understand wanting to come off as perfect in a job interview, especially when it's something you really want, but that's really still not what they're looking for. They want to know that you can see the flaws in yourself and that you've worked to improve them. So for example, my answer that I typically give when asked what my weakness is in job interviews, and really don't focus on what I'm saying, focus on how I'm saying it. But I say that whenever I'm in situations where there's a time crunch and a really close deadline, I tend to micromanage or just take over the project. That's just because I know how it should get done, and I want to get it done fast and on that time crunch. I don't want it to be left up to anybody else's chances. But however, I've had coworkers point out to me that this makes them feel like I don't trust them, which is not the case. It's literally just me trying to make sure that I get the job done that I was hired to get done. So I've worked on this. I'm definitely improving on trusting my coworkers, delegating, and figuring out how we can all come together. Even if that's like, you know, to make me feel more comfortable being like, okay, let's all hang out and get this project done together at the same time. That way I can kind of like see everybody working, you know, I'm getting there, I'm working on it. At the end of the day, it all comes down to me just wanting to make sure that my job is done correctly. But I can definitely see how that would create animosity between coworkers and teammates. So I'm working on it, and hopefully I'll get that figured out in the next year or so. Something like that, you know, a distinct situation where they know it's not an all the time thing, and that you're working on it, that you've had people point it out to you, and that you've reflected on it, and you can go on, because that shows that you can take criticism and you can change. So always word the, you know, what is your weakness question, something like that. My main thing with interviewing though, y'all, is just be yourself. No matter what the job is, people want to see your personality. If you come in and, for example, I was conducting an interview just the other day, and it was on Zoom because, you know, COVID, and the person was obviously just reading off their computer screen. And, you know, they were so nervous, and I could tell they were just trying to be prepared. But at the end of the day, like, I would rather you give me the wrong answer to a question, but have your personality shine through, you know? Maybe your answer's not picture perfect, and you don't say all the things I'm looking for, but you make me laugh and you show me kind of who you are, you know? Like, that's what a lot of employers are looking for. They're looking for somebody who can relate, someone who is a teammate and can communicate well with others. Banter, talk to them. My very last piece of advice is going to be, if they say, do you have any questions at the end of the interview? Always ask a question. Do not leave there without asking a question, for a ton of reasons. First of all, this is going to protect you too. Like I said earlier, they're not just interviewing you, you're interviewing them. Most of the time when you're interviewing for something, you have other opportunities and other options. You need to be able to figure out, like, if this is who you really want to work for, or an organization that you really want to be a part of. So make sure and ask a question. Now, the two questions that I always recommend people to ask in interviews is one, which is, what does a successful employee look like in this position? Like, who's your most successful employee? Or how would you deem me as a successful person if you hire me? Something like that. Because this question really shows you what the job is all about. You know, if they say it's somebody who works 24/7, is always at the office, goes overtime, that also shows you something about them. That shows that more than anything, they value your time, and that they're probably gonna take advantage of that. You know, that they want workers who don't have outside lives. And like, if that's what you're about, that's what you're about. But for me personally, that's usually a red flag. Like, that's not what you want someone's star employee to be. So always ask a question like that. Like, what does success look like here? What is the most, like, for example, if I was interviewing for the vlogging position, like, what does a successful vlogger look like? And kind of get their feedback on that. Another way you could word that question, if you don't want to ask it just like that, is if you hired me, what would make you think like, oh, I'm glad we hired them? Like what do, you know, something like that. Like you could be like, how would you know that you made the right decision in hiring me? Like what are things that I need to do in the next year that would prove to you that I did a good job and that you chose the right person in hiring me? Ask questions like that. Figure out what they're looking for. Also, you know, usually if you figure out what they're looking for, you get a pretty good idea if you're the person for the job. And sometimes it's okay if, like, you know, they say something and you're like, oh yeah, I don't think this is for me. That's healthy, that's fine. You don't have to take every job interview or every job offer that you're given, you know? Be able to reflect and remember, you're an asset, okay? They interviewed you for a reason. Go into the interview with confidence. If you need to do a confidence pose before you go in, do that. If you need to call your mom and get her to hype you up, do whatever you need to do, but go into interviews with confidence. Go in knowing that you deserve the position you're applying for, because trust me, that goes a long, long way. Talk to them, have banter, be yourself, know your strengths, know how to answer the ever important what is your weakness question, and always ask a question before you leave. I have tons more tips on interviews and stuff like that, but I was trying to keep this relatively short. So if you have any more questions, comment them down below, shoot us a DM on our Instagram, do whatever you gotta do. I'll get back to you with an answer. But I hope this helped y'all even just a little bit. Make sure and comment your strengths down below, or comment your weaknesses, and I can help you come up with a right way to phrase it. So if you're like, I think this is my weakness, but I have no idea how to make this sound good, comment it down below. I'll help you out, even with your strengths. I'm here to help. So yeah, hope y'all have a great day. Good luck on your interview. I'm assuming you have an interview coming up if you're watching this. And yeah, bye y'all, wreck 'em. See you next week.